Hi, I'm Donna Davis here with the legendary Richard Cole, who is our resident birding expert. So please ask your questions today. We love for it to be interactive. Let us know where you're watching from. How are you today, Richard?
I'm good today.
Yeah.
Cold, but,
yes,
but
very
good.
cold.
Yeah.
And speaking of cold, it's hard for us, but we've got coats and we can turn on heat. Our feathered friends can't. So how do they get through the winter?
It's hard for them sometimes.
Yeah.
But they are designed for it, or they wouldn't be here.
Right.
And like us, we found artificial ways to do it, but they rely on their body to function the way it's supposed to. It runs on high calorie foods. It produces a lot of heat. Their temperatures are like 104 degrees normally. And they can maintain the temperature during there by burning their fat.
That's amazing. So we're going to talk about what to feed your feathered friends during the winter and the cold months. And we'll tell you each individual bird and what it likes to eat and that kind of thing. And we're also going to talk about holiday gifts and how you can get the 2025 Cole's calendar. So it's a big show.
Yes.
So let's get started. Tell us about what we should be doing to help our feathered friends during the winter time, these cold months.
Number one, feed them. Feed them.
Yes.
These guys are going to survive on their own. Some people say, well, why feed the birds? They're good at finding food, but it's just our natural instinct to want to help out a little bit. And for me, that's why I fed the birds to start with. I like seeing them.
I started feeding the birds when I lived in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, because it was so cold and the snow was on the ground. And I thought, how can they get to their food?
Yeah. And a lot of birds have trouble getting to food, especially the ground feeders.
Yeah.
And so it's a tough time for them, but they do survive. But it's nice to give them a little helping hand. And it does, according to the research, does increase the populations around food sources a little bit. They don't super overpopulate or nothing. But you're helping out some. You're giving them a little chance. They can find their own food, but it's nice to give them a hand. It makes me feel good to feed them.
And speaking of you, we have some video of your yard and how Richard's entire yard is just made for the birds. And that's your first step, right? Having a bird-friendly yard includes not having a cat, right? But you have feeders everywhere. You've got lots of cover. You've got these woods for them and running water. Tell us a little bit about how you make your yard a bird sanctuary.
Well, I've lived in two different environments. This is one. This has more woods behind it and all. Another house I had didn't have much more, just pure subdivision. And they're both very similar.
Right.
My birds have more room to forage around in a natural forest. The other birds, of course, they forage around in our neighborhoods too and find the feeders. So it's nice to give them a little bit of something. Like here in the yard, I'll have a few feeders. I don't go really overboard. Some people have come in there in my yard and said, you don't have a lot of feeders. I had 4 or 5, and some people have a lot more than I do, but I try to have them in the right places, and I try to have the right things in them, and for goodness sakes, I do try to have them with food in them. Many times I see people with bird feeders, and I'll look out there, and there's nothing in them. Oh, well, I forgot to put it in there this week. What do you mean this week? How about yesterday or today?
Yeah, keep them clean and keep them full. So let's talk about some, just in general, great things for the birds to eat. I've got some some foods to show from the website, but certainly, you just want to be sure that you're feeding your birds. But tell us some of the good things to feed them. You like really sunflower meats, right?
Sunflower meats, it's a good all-around seed without the shell on it. And the reason that makes a difference, well, sunflower seeds are a very popular bird seed, have been forever. And most birds love them, and most birds can crack the shell. All birds can't. So you get a little wren and some of the warblers and stuff like that, they cannot crack, or bluebirds can't crack a sunflower seed. Well, what do? Now they wait for somebody else to break one. Well, if you have a mixture with some sun meats in it that don't have to have shell on it, then these birds are going to have a chance to eat it. And it becomes like an insect substitute for them because it's soft and it's got nutrition in it. So great foods, and everybody eats it. One of the reasons you see bluebirds coming to feeders now, and you didn't 30 or 40 years ago, it's like, oh, bluebirds won't come to bird feeders. Well, it's because there was nothing there they could eat. As we especially introduced sunflower meats to the feeding public, and it got more prevalent of being put out there without the shell. Gee, guess what? All of a sudden we start seeing birds at feeders who typically would say, oh, they don't come to feeders.
Right.
But now they have something to eat when they get there.
Yes, and these blends, I think they're really good to show,
Yes.
to give a wide variety, bring a wide variety of birds, and also they can see those, and I think that attracts them even more
Yeah.
to the feeders.
And
yeah,
they
when
see other
can
birds
see it.
coming to feeders, then
They're like, what do they have?
the traffic
Yes.
builds, yeah.
Yeah, so great things to know about, like making sure that you have cover and you have a bird-friendly yard and a water source, and then also to give them foods that are high energy. So let's talk about bluebirds in particular.
Yeah, everybody's favorite just about. I mean, who doesn't like bluebirds? And there's several varieties in the United States, so.
And what
Everybody
should
gets
you
them.
be feeding them in the winter?
In the winter, there again, sunflower meats, they can eat that, where they can't crack a sunflower seed. But they
Look how
can eat
little
that.
their beak is.
Yeah, and but when you have mealworms, there's a lot of dried mealworms available now, and in packages and things, and they love those. They love. Oh my goodness, I had like 6 or 7, 8 bluebirds today and yesterday
Really?
on a little feeder full of just dried mealworms,
Wow.
and they just cleaned it out. And I also have suet kibbles. We have a product of suet kibbles. It's like suet in a cake, but it's just in little pellets.
Yeah.
And all the birds love that stuff. All of them will eat it, especially the bluebirds. They really like it because they can eat it. And it's got the nutrition in there they need and the fat content they need.
And they like live mealworms as well as
They
the
do.
dried ones, right?
And the only problem with the live ones is
they're messy.
It's complicated. It's complicated to keep them. They're expensive because they're live. And a lot of people
Right.
just want to say, ooh. But they have started making a lot of them now that are dried. They just basically toast them lightly. They dries them out, but the nutrition that the birds need are still there. And once they get used to them, they eat them. They love them.
I love that idea of toasting your mealworms. It's just a
Well,
little
I won't say
toasted.
anything about putting them on toast or anything like that. But people do eat dried
Yes.
mealworms.
Oh,
And-
really?
Yeah, and they're not bad. I will not admit to eating them.
I
I'm
think
just
you
saying,
just
I
did.
can,
I think
I
you
can say with
did.
authority that they're not bad. They have a light, toasted, nutty aroma to
Wow.
them.
Yeah.
A little crunchy. They're good.
Like a little potato chip. Okay,
All
let's
kidding
move
aside,
on.
birds really like those, and
Yes.
the ones that don't eat a lot of seeds will eat the mealworms, and it's a great source of protein and
Helps them get
for 'em
through
in the wintertime, yes.
Yes. Yeah. Let's talk about finches. House finches, purple finches. What kind of food do they like during the winter?
generally, all these guys eat a little bit of the same things. They'll find insects where they can before the hard freezes knock them all down. And at the backside of this wintertime, when the little buds come out on trees, the little bitty things that are still tender, they'll eat those. The rest of the time, they'll find spiders and all now. And the seeds they eat, there's a lot of them they can. The finches, unlike a lot of the other songbirds, have a feature of the beak. It's a conical beak like a cardinal. Therefore, it's more like something they can really mash something. Instead of a skinny little beak, it's got a pointed shape like that. And they can get force on things. They can break a lot of seeds open. So they get a chance to get around the trees and eat seeds that a lot of the other birds can't do. So that's what they mostly feed on in the wintertime is seed crops.
Now, will they eat suets? Because I know suet cakes are great in the winter
Yes.
because they're real high fat. But will the finches eat
Yes,
it?
yes.
Okay.
Most of the birds will. I've not seen. I don't think I've seen a bird that wouldn't come to suet
Yeah.
once it sees the other birds eating. They come there, they taste it, they will eat it. Especially if
Yeah.
it's presented a way they can get to it.
Yeah.
Most times, most suet cakes are in a hanging feeder. That slows some birds down. Although I think I've noticed in the last 4, 5, 6 years that a lot of my birds tend to be able to handle the suet feeder better
Yeah.
than they used to. Although I've got suet in other places for them. There's a typical suet
you
feeder
go.
right there.
That's
And-
perfect. And I love the log. Doesn't that have suet in it too?
Yes.
The log?
Yes, it's
Oh,
just
that's
an old
perfect.
dead log. It's still firm with 1 inch, 1.5 inch holes drilled in it, and I just push suet up in the holes.
Yeah.
It's got some, woodpeckers love that, and the songbirds will come up there and get on it also.
Perfect. Yeah, your yard is just made for everything. So let's talk about cardinals. Everyone loves. There's nothing
Yes.
more beautiful than the bright red cardinal in the snow. So what do we do to attract cardinals to our
Well,
yard?
you know, the sunflower seed in the shell, that was the typical big thing for cardinals, the sunflower seed. Cardinals also tend to like safflower seed. And here in the South, we didn't see safflower seed very often. We weren't feeding it to the birds. But we started doing this about 20 years ago, and now a lot of the birds around here kind of like it. My birds love it, and it's a good seed that.
And the suet kibbles.
Oh, there's the suet kibbles. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those things are great. They'll go in a
Yes.
feeder. They'll go in just a deck railing. You put them in a pan.
Did you pay these two to come to the feeder for
I
that
did.
picture?
Yeah. I got a deal. Two for one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, they like
Nothing
all
nice.
kinds of food. But I will tell you, getting back to the safflower,
Yeah.
I use this, and what I loved about it is the cardinals love it, and they
Yes.
have that big beak, and they can get into it. But the other birds that will just eat you out of house and home, like
Yeah.
the crows and the starlings
Yes.
and stuff, they didn't seem to like it.
Most of the blackbirds don't tend to
Yeah.
eat the safflower, and I really don't know. It don't matter why they don't, and that makes it nice because the cardinals do like it, and a lot of the other little songbirds can't crack that little hard
Yes.
shell. So it's not a cardinals only seed. A lot of
Yeah.
birds eat it, but it's a great food to put out there as a alternative to some of the other things. A little separate bowl for just certain birds,
Yeah.
like the cardinals.
Perfect. So let's talk about chickadees, an adorable little bird to attract to your feeder.
Chickadees,
I love chickadees.
and titmice, they kind of run
Yeah.
together, and everybody's got chickadees.
Yeah.
And they're really neat birds. They're, again, a small beak. They do peck a little bit. They can open some tender things. But there again, you can do sunflower seeds, sunflower meats, of course, goes for everybody. These guys eat a little bit of everything. They like the suet.
Oh, okay.
They really do. And especially in the kibble form. But sunflower meats is really what I get the most hits on with these guys. And then, of course, I think they may eat a little bit of millet also, but it's mostly sunflower seeds and broken up pieces of it. And suet.
Can they get into the actual seed? Are their beaks strong enough to get into
Yeah.
the seed, or do you prefer the meats for them?
I prefer the meat form. It's
Okay.
quicker. It's quicker and they get more.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a matter of then. If you watch the titmice and chickadees, both can crack a sunflower seed.
Oh,
Takes a little work
okay.
for them, and it's I guess it's a nice piece of food in there
Yeah.
for them because size wise. But they can both good. Titmice, I always love to watch them because they grab it, go off to a limb, hold it between their 2 feet, and peck on it. And then
Yeah.
the little pieces fly and they get the meats. Chickadees do very much the same thing, and they can
Right.
split the seeds open.
So they all seem pretty adept at withstanding the cold.
Yes.
And that's pretty amazing in and of itself that they can
Yeah.
do so well during the winter.
Yeah, I couldn't do it.
I know, and their little feet, they're so tiny.
All these
and-
guys are survivalists, and they
Yeah.
find food everywhere. They're constantly looking. And if you just sit back and watch, in summertime or wintertime, just sit on your porch and watch them out in the woods, you'll see them going up and down the trees, looking under the
Yeah,
bark,
under
and
bark.
then on the top
Yeah.
of the bark, and then all around leaves. They know where to look. And
Yeah.
each one of these birds is somewhat specialized in where they look and how they look for food.
Let's talk about that. So the next one up, let's talk about nuthatches and how they look for food, because they're always
Yeah.
upside down. Nuthatches are so much fun to watch.
Yes, and they get to places where the other birds, although they may hang on the side of a tree and look, they're not as good at getting to food on trees and under the bark layers as nuthatches.
They have really
Because
adapted.
they'll scoot along and just look under all the little crevices. And some of them will actually hide food
Oh,
in those
really?
places for later, yeah.
That's smart. That's really smart that they would
Some of
hide
the,
it.
like some of the woodpeckers out west are really
Yeah.
good at drilling the holes. You hear the acorn woodpeckers, they poke acorns in it.
Yeah, I've
But
seen
some of
that.
these birds will actually just hide food in certain places.
I didn't know nuthatches
In bark
did
of
that.
trees, yeah. They won't dig big holes, but they'll tuck away seeds for later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so really quickly, I do want to show like the hot meats, because this is such a great thing to be able to have. Like, I like to have the birds come up to the porch
Yeah.
and that kind of thing, but I don't want the squirrels. The squirrels are always coming up on the deck and trying to steal, the food and that kind of thing. But to me, these hot meats are perfect because you've got all the nutrition of the sunflower meats and you're not feeding the squirrels.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. It makes it nice. I feed squirrels too, but I give
I
them
do
their
too, but
food
they
off to the
will
side.
break into your
Y'all eat over
feeders.
there.
Yeah.
Leave us alone for the birds.
Right.
And the sunflower seed with the chili pepper oil infused into it, it just
It's a perfect one.
the squirrels don't like the taste of it.
Right.
They just don't like the taste of it. I don't like the taste of it.
Have you tried it?
It's too hot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I bet it is.
I've done way too many taste tests on it. But it's very hot.
I love a
But
man
the birds,
that stands behind his product enough to eat it. That is so funny, Richard.
the birds, they don't taste the heat. They don't
Yeah.
have receptors to feel the heat source, so they just eat it and it's fine.
Right.
Yeah.
And so let's talk a little bit about woodpeckers. I think the woodpeckers are beautiful. Love to attract them. A lot of people don't. They don't want the woodpeckers near their house because they don't want them pecking.
Yeah.
But let's talk about how you can attract them. They're gorgeous.
Well, they come right up to feeders now. If you've been around in areas that had bird feeding going on for any period of time, the woodpeckers have learned to come into it. They also are very quick to come to suet feeders. And that's one of the things where I get most of my woodpecker action is on the suet feeders. We saw the little double feeder hanging there before in the log.
Yeah.
With the suet stuck in it. They are all over it all the time.
Yeah, see, this
Yeah.
one. That's what you're talking about. And they have such a great ability. They have no problem with hanging on that
No.
suet feeder. You know, they can be upside down
Yeah.
or just, they are very adept, I would say.
And
at
it gets
that.
drops off in a place like around this area where we don't get super hard freezes most of the time. We get
Yeah.
some. But if it starts getting pretty cold, like this morning, and yesterday morning was down, below freezing.
Yeah.
So they'll just really come in for the suet at that point in
Yeah.
time. And it's not unusual for me to go through one or two of the cakes a day
Really?
in that one feeder.
Wow.
I'll look out there and it's like,
See, look,
it's
they'll
gone.
go right through the snow
Yeah.
and get it. I love
Yeah.
it. So I have pulled up here, the special feeder suet. It says it's chock full of pecans and peanuts
Mm-hmm.
and, so that is really helpful during the winter months, right? Because they really need that nutrition and that fat, right?
Yeah.
To get
And
through.
we say fat, or who eats fat? Well, these guys do because it's calories.
Right.
It's pure calories. They can convert fat into calories quicker than they can other items of food.
Right.
And they don't need to watch their weight because nature takes care of that. Some people say something about feeding some items like this to birds will they get fat. And I said, I've never seen a bird too fat to fly.
No.
Well, chickens maybe, that's a whole different story.
I don't, if we stay out of it
Yeah.
and just let them,
Yeah.
they're not going to get too fat to fly.
But they need this, especially in the colder months. And all year round, it's just good nutrition for them and
Yeah.
good energy source.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just to recap a little bit, let's talk about, you want a yard that's going to be attractive to them, right?
Yes.
And that means like a wooded area, great place for them to fly and take cover. And what are some of the other
Well,
things
you
might
named
want
them
in your
all
yard?
earlier.
Yeah.
It's like really food, shelter, and
Running water, yeah.
water.
Yeah.
That's what we all need: food, shelter, and water.
You have taught me too. I wouldn't have thought that the birds needed to bathe during the winter,
Yes,
that
they
they
do.
need running water. But you've
Yeah.
taught me that
Yeah.
they like to be able to they need to be able to get
Yes.
their fur clean, or not
Their-
their fur, their
their
feathers,
feathers, yeah.
and keep those clean and everything. So they're still like showering off even during the cold.
Yeah, you'll see. In fact, I have a little heater for a bird bath, and I keep some water available all the time for them, so they'll get in and take a bath, and even when there's ice all around it, they'll
Yeah.
bathe
Oh,
because
great! Yeah.
it just so happens. Look at that. They'll get around the edges of anything like that and bathe in that water. It helps get the parasites off, and it helps keep their feathers clean and a little bit less matted or oily, so
Yeah.
they can fluff and be a better insulator to their bodies. That's
Yeah.
why they bathe in the wintertime.
And I love seeing them, how they fluff up when it's
Yes.
cold. And several of them will sometimes, like with bluebirds, they'll get in a bluebird house together and stay really warm,
They
right?
will. It's one of the few times birds don't live in birdhouses, but in the really cold periods of the season,
Yeah.
some birds will gather even together, 4, 5, 6
Right.
birds, and pile into a birdhouse together to stay warm.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
that's an interesting sight when you see 5 or 6 or 7 bluebirds go into a birdhouse and they don't come back out. It's like, what? They don't come out the next morning.
I know, I wish I had seen that. I love that. But let's talk about really quickly, Christmas is coming up, Hanukkah, all kinds of holiday season. And just let's go over a few great gifts that you can get for birders in your life. Like you suggest seed and a feeder.
Yes, yes. I mean, anybody who's feeding the wild birds, I don't know of one of them who would turn down a brand new feeder if offered. I mean,
Absolutely.
you can always use another feeder. You can always look around and say, maybe this one's time to go, and replace it with a better one. It's coming apart, and the neighbors are looking at it, and they don't like the way it looks because it's too old. Get them a new feeder.
Right.
And
it's such a great gift.
with the accessories, you got the little bowls, you've got covers to go
Yeah.
over the top of them, and it just makes a nice, easy gift. You don't have to worry about sizes and all that kind of stuff or color so much. It's just a nice bird feeder, and they know what to do with it. And some seed to go with it would really be, that's a good gesture. Just give them, they're ready to go. You get some seed, you get a bird feeder, you hang it up. You're good by Christmas afternoon. You got the feeder in action.
Right. And whether or not you're feeding birds now or you want to start, it's just such a great way to be able to give that gift to somebody and get them started.
And even a hummingbird feeder,
Yeah.
I just saw the picture of.
Yep.
Because we recommend that you keep a hummingbird feeder out
Yes.
year-round.
Because
Everybody
you
says,
still see them,
"Oh,
right?
Sure. Well, I feed them if they'll show up. They most likely will not show up here in the southeast, but some do. A lot of birds from the west will come into the east, especially the southeast, and stay the winter here. We didn't know this 30 years ago, but it's become more and more noticeable that they're here, and a lot of research has been done. We've caught a lot of them, had them banded, and we see them return year after year. Like Rufus hummingbirds from west, a lot of them will spend some time in the southeast. So we keep a feeder out and recommend everybody else does it. Just keep your eye on it. You don't have to change it very often in wintertime because it's so cold, the nectar stays pretty good.
Yeah.
But watch, and if you see a hummingbird on it in an area you don't normally think they should be here in the wintertime in the southeast
Yeah.
or in the north, you call somebody to your local bird club or call the Audubon Society and say, who do I report this to? And someone may be interested in coming out and actually having the bird tagged and recorded for research. And a lot of this has been going on now. I think we've been 20-something years with a lot of this type of research going on, maybe 30 years. And we've learned a lot about hummingbirds and what they really do in the wintertime, where they really go.
Yeah.
And there's still a lot of them here in the States. Not near as many as in migration time when they come in here for breeding season, but there's some here. So put the feeder out, you may get a surprise.
Yeah.
Worst case, this feeder's sitting out there and waiting for them next spring.
Yeah.
So change the nectar very often, though, please. Yeah.
Good advice. So one other quick thing, if you're wanting to get a Kohl's 2025 calendar, a great way to do that is to go to Kohl's One Stop Shop. And you can buy products here, and on your first purchase, you can get a free Kohl's 2025 calendar. And those calendars are absolutely gorgeous.
I thought the 2025 was one of the best ones, and they're all done with pictures from sent in by our customers.
Right.
Yeah,
It's so good.
Yeah,
Yes.
we've got nice customers.
Yeah, I have a couple of them myself, and I absolutely love those calendars.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I have a
anything
few.
else you want to say before we?
Yeah, just
Check out.
think about the birds in the wintertime. And I know it's hard with everything going on, especially at the holiday season. Your mind's on a lot of things, but an empty feeder doesn't do any bird any good. Just keep the feeders clean and keep something in them. If it's just a little bit, just go out there and throw a little seed in them once or twice a day. Make sure that they have a little bit to get them by. And you'll get a lot more birds there because they'll learn that it's a reliable food source and they'll show up more.
Okay, question for you. You've been doing this for a long
A
time.
long time.
When you go outside to fill your feeders, do they literally come out, like wait for you, or see you coming out, and they're like, "Oh, we're going to get some of that food now"?
A little bit. It works better that way if you're a person on a rigorous schedule.
Oh,
Like,
they'll learn your
you go
schedule,
out
huh?
at 10 o'clock every morning and put food in the feeder, you will see much more of a reaction than if you're sporadic about what time it is. If you're on a schedule, they learn very quickly. Don't waste their time hanging out here. They'll go do and forage somewhere else, and they'll be there approximately, I don't know if they check their little watch or how they do it,
Isn't that amazing?
but they know about when it is during the day. Food's going to be available at that place, and they'll start showing up.
And probably with you, not so much, because I would imagine you always have food in the feeder. Like if they're stopping by, there's something they can get, right?
Pretty much. Sometimes they'll empty one of my feeders, not the big ones generally,
Yeah.
but the small bowl feeder that I like to put odds and ends in.
Yeah.
That thing will go empty. Right now, they're emptying a bountiful bowl feeder that's maybe a half full, it'll be gone in 3-4 hours.
Wow.
So many birds are coming to it to get the suet kibbles and some peanuts that I throw in
Fall
there.
slowdown is over. They're back.
It's over.
And
yeah.
just one more time, if you have any questions, if you want to comment where you're watching from, anything like that, please make your comment on Facebook or on YouTube, and Richard is here to hopefully answer your questions or
Yes.
or comment on whatever you have to say. But he is such a great resource to be able to use. So please, if you have a question, and I'm just refreshing my screen to see if there are any questions, please ask now, because you don't have much more time. Joseph Pyers is watching from Calabash, North Carolina. So thanks for watching.
Yeah.
Any other final thoughts, Richard?
Now, just like I said, the main
Just
thing
be-
about in feeding
yeah,
the birds is
consistency.
just be sure that you keep something in the bowl consistently.
Yes.
That's the most important thing. If you can't afford to put 6 pounds of food out every day, put a ½ pound, put 2 cups out, but just keep it consistent.
Right.
And then you'll get that routine of birds coming by, and you'll see the birds constantly and for less seed, or you can just go whole hog and put all kinds of feeders out there and watch the circus,
Yeah.
which will be fun.
It never gets old.
I
does it?
try to do it somewhere in the middle. I have
Yeah.
4, 5, 6 feeders, and a suet feeder or 2, and so I can see them out of 2 or 3 different places in a house.
Yeah.
So that's enough.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Oops.
And one last look at Richard's house and all the feeders he has
There's
there.
one of the Bountiful Bowls, which is a great feeder.
Yeah. Yeah, you can really see them well on that one.
Yes, you can. That's what it's all about. You want to see the birds. You put
Right.
the food out there, you help them, but then you get to see them.
Yeah.
There's a nice, we like platform feeders.
Yeah.
And the squirrel gets in that one all the time, and that's fine.
Oh, I thought that. I
Yes.
thought, I didn't see baffle, so,
I
yeah,
don't-
there we see a baffle, but the platform feeder, you're okay with
Yeah,
it.
and that's far enough away from the tree so the squirrel
Yeah.
can't jump. One squirrel made it one time. We still have a record of that jump from
They
a
are
tree.
amazing.
It sailed all the way over and hit the top of that thing and hung on.
Yeah.
And so we let it eat.
Yeah,
So-
if it can do all that, yeah, I can see that. Well, thank you for joining us today. Richard is here the first Wednesday of the month at 3 o'clock Eastern Time to answer your birding questions and give you insights into feeding the birds.
All right.
So we'll see you next time.
And Merry Christmas.
That's right.
Hello, this is Richard Cole. I want to thank each of you for watching, and I want you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and don't forget to share it.